Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Hopefully you guys are all having an amazing day so far. Welcome to another episode of my Homelab series. In our last few episodes, we actually created a DNS server, which in my opinion is kind of just a prereq for what we want to get started with to be able to do hostname stuff. So in this video, we're actually going to explore actually creating a GitLab server. A GitLab server is actually more for as a code repository, but also does CI/CD stuff, or you can use it as a wiki to do documentation. I figured this is the next good server to kind of do in your home lab because essentially this is a good place to store any kind of like bash scripts or build scripts, or even like when you do automation and you want to do Ansible playbooks or Chef or Puppet configurations, like GitLab is the place that you will put it in essentially. So in this video, we're going to create a GitLab server. In a different video, we'll actually dig more into GitLab itself and what you can do with it. So this video is also sponsored by me, myself, and I. So if you're interested in doing a sponsorship with me, feel free to send me an email in my business to my business email in the description below. Also, if you're interested in sending me free hardware for my home lab, cough 10 gig stuff, I'd be more than happy to actually do unboxings and stuff like that for it, and put it into my home lab. So if you guys have some spare hardware that you want to send and I can show off, I'd be more than happy to accept them. So send me an email below if you're interested. But without further ado, let's get started and build a GitLab server, guys. All right, so I already created the server from the VM template, so we're gonna just get started here with it. So we'll log in to the template. We will need to configure the networking so that it has a unique IP. Sys config networks. And in this case, we're gonna do 132. So 130 is our template, 131's DNS. So we're gonna do 132 in this case. And then we also want to set the hostname. Set hostname to be gitlab.dragon.local. So those should just be the two configurations that we'll need to do to get this server started. We're gonna reboot the machine. Everything should come back up here. And we can now see that it says GitLab. So the next thing we're going to actually do here is we're going to log into the DNS server and actually update the DNS configuration. Data. So we'll need to update the serial. So in this case, I'm just going to up this number by 1, so it changes because it's already the 7th on here. Otherwise, I just usually do the date. We'll add GitLab, input, a record, and 132. Oh, sorry. And by 132, I meant 132. I actually probably have something already on 32 itself. So, all right. Then we'll reload the zone and make sure that it actually reload. Okay, so loaded the 0, all zones loaded, sweet, and we are good. So the next thing is actually if you're running a later version of Windows in your command prompt, actually you should be able to use the SSH command. They actually finally built that into Windows, which is the best thing ever. Because I essentially ended up using a Mac back in college to do SSH. I switched to a Mac. I actually still have my Mac, and I still do like it in the command prompt here. But SSH is like your best friend ever. So what we're gonna actually do is SSH into the server. This will allow me to copy and paste things if I need to. The problem if I do it, I can't copy and paste in this web console because it's not built for that. So I want to use the command prompt for the most part, we're probably going to type most of it out, but if we ever need to copy and paste because it's some like random character string, we can copy and paste. Okay, so now that we have the server set on the right IP, the hostname set, now we're ready to actually install GitLab. So, easiest thing is go to Google, figure out how to install GitLab. So GitLab actually has a self-managed GitLab page, which will tell you how to pretty much install. We'll focus on the CentOS 7 here, even though we're running CentOS 8, mainly because it's still under the RHEL kind of Oracle distribution. So they should pretty much be the exact same, so we're not going to sweat that too much. So we'll actually do it like this. So we'll first install the dependencies, right? And for example, like I've already used curl on this, so curl will, because it's already installed, won't matter. The policy core utils I know is actually a deprecated one and won't install on CentOS 8, so we're not even going to do that. We'll make sure SSH Server is installed, which is I know already installed, and we'll make sure Perl's installed. So we'll go through that, make sure all those install. And then the next part here is actually just making sure that SSH it's already SSHD is enabled. This is because, for example, for when you have like GitLab and you want to do like pushes to the repos, you can essentially do it via HTTP or SSH. But if you don't have SSHD configured on the machine, you can't do it via SSH. And in my experience, SSH works way better because you use key-based authentication instead of using your login. Essentially, I know SSH is already, and OpenSSH is already installed because I was able to, from my Windows computer, SSH to the GitLab server. That's essentially having SSH installed and running. So then the next part is actually the firewall stuff. So this is actually adding firewall rules onto the server to make sure that it allows for HTTP and HTTPS to be allowed in. I'm not going to do these because if you remember in a previous video, we actually disabled the firewall because we didn't want to deal with determining a few rules. Let's put it that way. GitLab does do it nicely to tell you what the rules are. Other services may or may not be that great. So for only Homelab purposes, you can disable the firewall. For production environments, don't disable the firewall. Actually learn how to enter rules into the firewall. The next dependency is Postfix, which is essentially an email service. So we're not going to worry about that either because we're not going to be sending emails out of this. So don't sweat that. The next part here is actually we're going to be getting the GitLab package repository installed onto this box. So this is a good case of copy and paste because they have a copy and you can right click to paste. So the reason why we need to get the GitLab package repository is essentially because the package repository says, hey, this is where you can install GitLab from our servers. By default in Linux, the Linux repositories only have Linux packages. They don't have specific packages for specific services like GitLab or other SaaS service things. So you have to actually install it from their package repository. So the next thing here, and I'm not going to copy paste this. I'm going to copy paste this part. But the next part is actually doing the install, guys. So the install here actually has a few extra things here. So it actually defines an external URL. In this case, instead of HTTPS, we're going to do HTTP. Now, in most cases, you should always use HTTPS because HTTPS is more secure. HTTP traffic can be in plain text, which can cause really bad stuff if you get man in the middle. But in this case, I'm comfortable doing HTTP because I know this is in my home lab. I know that I have control of everything in regards to that traffic, and I don't want to deal with certs right now. We might do a different video that deals with certs, but in this video, we're not going to deal with certs because that's going to take like 20 more minutes, and I don't want to deal with that. So keep it short and simple, right? We're going to just do HTTP in this regards, but if you're doing a production environment, make sure it's HTTPS. Also, if you need HTTPS, GitLab actually does a Let's Encrypt if it's publicly accessible. So there's GitLab actually is very nice in helping you get the cert created. But because we're hosting it on our home lab, we're keeping it all self-contained. It won't be publicly accessible for Let's Encrypt, so we're just going to stick to HTTP in this case. And because we created the DNS, we can actually do gitlab.dragon.local as the actual DNS. So what we'll actually do is now install GitLab EE with setting the external URL to be gitlab.dragon.local on HTTP. So this is actually going to take a few minutes. So the other thing that you guys will need to do if you haven't done it already, so now that we've had the DNS server set up, we want our current Windows box to actually be able to utilize that DNS server. If your current computer isn't pointing to the DNS server, we won't actually be able to use this URL in our browser, which is a problem. So if you open your network configuration, you should hopefully have a screen similar to this. Depending on your version of Windows, it might look slightly different, might look the same, but you should have something in here that talks about changing the net adapter options. So it should bring up this like control panel that says what all your network cards or Wi-Fi cards are. The one that you'll focus on is the one that is not disconnected. So in this case, I only have one, so it's very simple, but you might have to look. For the most part, it's either going to look like this, where it's like you plugged into Ethernet, or it'll be like a Wi-Fi symbol and you're just using Wi-Fi. But you just double click on whichever one is active, go to properties, double click on Internet Protocol version 4, and then yours will probably look like obtain DNS server automatically. You actually want to switch this to use the following DNS server. And in this case, we're going to point it to our DNS server that we configured, which is on 131. We'll validate settings upon exit, hit OK, hit OK. It'll come up with this Windows network diagnostic saying, can it identify a problem? Really, there isn't a problem. So you can just ignore it, hit close, close, and you are good. So now, whenever your computer queries the queries for a DNS record, it will hit that DNS server. So in this case, it looks like it will be installing GitLab EE 16. I have not used 16 before yet. I think I'm still running 15 on my current home lab. That is another thing to consider when you work on your home lab, because you'll first create like all your servers and you'll be like, oh man, this is the bomb, right? Like this is amazing. You got all these services running. The problem with maintaining a home lab is patching and keeping your services and applications up to date. Because for the most part, you kind of get into a comfort of if it works, why change it, right? So like, you might be running like GitLab, 15 or GitLab 14, but like this, it's still supported. The problem is when it gets too far out and not supported, that's when you start having issues, because then they won't be updating those packages, and you essentially will have to worry about all the other things that are going on, essentially. So we'll probably do another video, and we'll probably use like Ansible or whatnot to build playbooks to help keep your servers up to date. Because the last thing you want is an out-of-date server and you're running like, a 4-year-old version of GitLab, right? So with that, I think we're at a point where essentially we're just waiting for GitLab to install. So we'll leave it off right now. We'll fast forward the video, and when GitLab finishes installing, we will resume there. So all right, now that we've come back, GitLab has finished installing. So it went through all the scripts and did all the things I needed to do. It finished installing. So the next part is logging to GitLab with the initial root password. So as you can see in step 3, there is a GitLab initial root password. that is a generated password if you don't define it. In this case, this is the root password. So we're going to use that to do it. So you should actually be able to now go to gitlab.dragon.local. Pops up here. We'll use root. We'll copy and paste the password here and sign in. So now you can see that you have officially installed GitLab. There are a few things that I will show you guys here that you want to do on your first install, but we will do like more in-depth actual GitLab stuff in another video. So the first thing is you want to actually disallow sign-up restrictions because by default, anyone can create an account on your GitLab server if they can, hit the web page. You don't want that because you don't want random people signing up. Now, granted, this is in public and this is in your home lab, so you don't have to worry about it as much, but it's a security thing that honestly I think should just be disabled because no one really wants that. Should be disabled by default. But it's not, but it does warn you, so go do that. The next thing is, by all means, if you ever work in tech, go to preferences, go to dock mode, hit dock. We don't like white backgrounds. It hurts my eyes. If you ever work production support and you wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning to deal with an alert and you open your computer screen and it's a white background, it is the most obnoxious thing ever. So change your backgrounds to dock mode. And then the last thing that you want to do, obviously, is actually update the password because you do not want to be using the temporary password for any reason. So we'll just update the password to what I have it on the servers. Save. And then we'll just log back in with the new password. And there you go. You guys have officially installed a GitLab server. So hopefully you guys learned some stuff there. Enjoy the process, and in the next few videos, or in some videos in the near future, we will actually create some projects, set up some runners, and maybe do some Docker stuff. Honestly, GitLab's a lot of fun. There's a lot of things you can do with it, so we're just gonna explore the little parts that I can show you. So. Awesome. Well, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you guys have an amazing time, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.